Issyk-Kul. We just flew over the Balhash and look, there's Issyk-Kul.
Очень красиво.
Wow, such a beautiful lake.
Красотень просто.
Just amazing. It's a pearl among mountains. Kyrgyzstan is a small mountainous country in Central Asia. In the old days, the Kyrgyz were nomads, but currently they keep many of the traditions of their ancestors. Nowadays, the country is a modern secular state, with agriculture and tourism being the main occupation of its inhabitants. The beauty of its pristine nature, mountains, rivers, and glaciers attract thousands of tourists to the country, while the world's largest mountain lake, Issyk-Kul, Hot Lake, is included in the UNESCO World Heritage List. The high mountain wonder, framed by ridges, is a real pearl with the purest water. The mild climate, warm water, and sandy beaches are an ideal place for a summer vacation. The lake itself feeds 80 rivers and streams, which are mainly fed by snow and glaciers. And climbers know well the 7,000ers, Lenin Peak, and the peak of Han Tengri, translated from the Turkic, Lord of the Sky. Glaciers have been forming on the tops of these mountains for hundreds of thousands of years. They represent the reservoirs of fresh water, which, in Central Asia, is worth its weight in gold. Since ancient times, the Kyrgyz have treated water with reverence and respect. The nature of Kyrgyzstan is unique and has an untarnished innocence. A person cannot create such beauty, but they can destroy it. In the mountains near the lake, gold is mined in the open pit at the world's largest mountain mine, Kumtor, located at an altitude of 3,600 to 4,200 meters above sea level. Here, in the permafrost zone, there are 5 glaciers: Davidov, Lisi, Saritor, Bordu, and Petrov. The mine is located at the source of the water system of the Narin-Syardarya rivers. On December 4th, 1992, a general agreement was signed between the government of Kyrgyzstan and the Canadian Cameco Corporation, which was succeeded by the Canadian company Centerra Gold Incorporated in 2004. Its subsidiary, Kumtor Gold Company, is developing the mine. According to preliminary data, to date, the Canadian side has earned about $11.5 billion US, resulting from the development of the deposit, while Kyrgyzstan has earned about $1.5 billion US. Commence detonation. Gold is mined in an open way. Ice is removed in huge quantities. Waste rock is extracted containing toxic substances and salts of heavy metals, such as cadmium, lead, zinc, chromium, and others. Under the terms of the agreement, the Canadian company has undertaken to comply with the legislation of the Kyrgyz Republic in the field of environmental protection. However, the company has defaulted on its commitment and is developing deposits in violation of the environmental standards, showing a barbaric and irreverent attitude towards glaciers. In 2012, the Kyrgyz Parliamentary Commission stated that the company was storing mining waste on glaciers. According to Article 47 of the Law of the Kyrgyz Republic on water, water users are obliged to prevent pollution and contamination of the surface of glaciers and snowfields caused by industrial, household, and other wastes and emissions. By the resolution of the government of Kyrgyzstan, a valley was identified as the site of waste rock in accordance with the feasibility study of the project. However, the company violated this provision, having decided to save transportation costs by storing rocks on glaciers. This fact is not denied by Centera. In 2011, an annual information form notes, a significant amount of waste rock was discharged directly into the adjacent Davidov Glacier. Kyrgyz laws prohibit the disposal of waste without appropriate permits. Kumtor Gold Company did not receive such permits. The international company Environmental Resources Management, in its report, noted, at the moment, the following permits and approvals are not available and must be obtained by the company from the relevant supervisory authorities. They mean permission for waste disposal. The State Commission checked and confirmed the facts of violations at Kumtor, revealed by the Deputy Commission. However, even after the facts of violations were established, the company continued its illegal actions. AMEC, a reputable international consultancy based in the UK that conducts environmental and engineering risk assessments for the mining industry, in its 2013 report on Kumtor's operations, noted, new waste dumps are still proposed on problematic existing dumps. Mining operations at Kumtor began in 1996, with 410 tons of gold obtained in 25 years, accompanied by a huge amount of waste rock, more than 2 billion tons, which poses a heavy burden on the fragile natural balance of glaciers. Experts and ecologists are sounding the alarm. They claim that the activities of the gold miners have caused irreparable damage to the environment. William Colgan, PhD, a researcher from the Geological Survey of Denmark and Greenland, concluded that climate change is undoubtedly the main factor in the retreat of the glacier across the entire Tian Shan Ridge. But the Lisi and Davidova glaciers are a special case because they are affected by the Kumtor mine. The perimeter of the Kumtor open ice mine increased by more than 30 meters per year between 1998 and 2013. During the same period, neighboring glaciers, melting as a result of global warming, retreated by about 10 meters per year. Obviously, local mining is clearly having a greater impact on the recent decline of the Davidov and Lisi glaciers than regional climate changes.
настоящее время, по данным некоторых ученых,
Currently, according to scientists, there is a high risk that the lake will breach. Another dangerous consequence of the operation of the mine may be the breach of Lake Petrov, formed as a result of the melting of the glacier of the same name. Until the mid-90s, the lake was considered non-dangerous in terms of the breach. However, the forecast changed by the end of the 20th century due to the fact that a vast frontal section of the lake dam began to actively sink into the west of the Kumtor breach. However, despite the experts' assessments, the gold mining enterprise located the company's tailings dump on the way to the outburst, 37 meters below the Petrov Lake. And it's scary to imagine what consequences the breach of the lake will lead to. Hundreds of millions of cubic meters of toxic substances would poison everything in its path, making water and soil unusable throughout the region, causing an increase in the number of cancer and other diseases, while hundreds of thousands of hectares of land would become uninhabitable. The tailing dump is planned to increase its capacity to 101 million cubic meters, despite having an initial design capacity of only 40 million cubic meters. In 2016, the company noted that the capacity of the tailing dump was increased to 88 million cubic meters. Today, it stores about 90 million cubic meters of waste. According to experts, the overabundance of stored material, even with minor deviations from normal, natural, or technologic impacts, can lead to extreme consequences. Although Kumtor is reinforcing the edges of the tailing dump with waste rock, the dam continues to move. The upper slope of the dam and the tailings dump bed are covered with a shielding polyethylene film, only 100 meters deep, with the rest of the bottom remaining unprotected and increasing the risk of toxic waste seeping through corroded, ice-rich areas. In the event of an outburst of the tailing dump, groundwater pollution and the appearance of harmful toxic substances in the Naran River are inevitable. In the report of American hydrochemist Dr. Robert Moran, the data on the electrical conductivity of water in the Kumtor River below the mine indicate its high mineralization.
At this elevation, should be highly oxygenated, meaning having a lot of oxygen. But do you notice all the sediment that it's in it? This is nowhere near as clear as before. We're approaching 8 or something like 8 times the dissolved material is the estimate of upstream. Now, admittedly, we only have a few measurements. They haven't allowed us to really go in and do much checking. This is pretty obvious that something is in this water that has been added from the mining activities.
Large industries use many substances that pollute water, soil, and air. For example, fuel, explosives, and technical mixtures. If the rules for environmental protection are not observed, this will accelerate the melting of ice inside of the central pit and the Sari-Tor Glacier. The resulting water flows into the Kumtor River and further to Narin, where, according to experts, the concentration of sulfates and nitrates has increased. Gross violations of the technical standards for the construction and operation of tailing dumps lead to the leakage of hazardous substances into the soil and water of the region. According to UN estimates, more than 40% of the world's population suffers from water shortages, while more than 700 million inhabitants of the planet are deprived of access to clean water. According to the World Health Organization and UNICEF, as of 2019, 2.21 billion people do not have access to safe drinking water. Global climate change and anthropological impact on the environment can further decrease the availability of clean drinking water, which, in turn, can result in conflict over clean water. Back in 2010, UN Secretary-General Ban Ki-moon emphasized that the world's water reserves are under threat. Every day, we dump millions of tons of untreated sewage and industrial or agricultural waste into the world's water systems. Clean water has become scarce and will become scarcer as climate change intensifies. And the poor are still the first and the most affected by pollution, water scarcity, and the lack of proper sanitization. In our country, the purest glacial water from Lake Petrov serves as the only source of water supply for the Kumtor mine. And, in addition, it is used for the technical needs of the gold recovery plant, an even bigger offense. To save money, the Kumtor operating company did not establish the system of recycling the water supply of the gold recovery plant provided for in the feasibility study for the gold mining enterprises using cyanide technology. Recycling the water supply is mandatory, and regulation requires the constant, partial, or full use of effluents, which not only save fresh water, but also reduce the amount of toxic reagents discharged into the environment. However, the company continues to use 5 million cubic meters of glacial water from Lake Petrov annually. Since the start of the mine, more than 135 million cubic meters of crystal clear water have been used, without payment. This is the most blatant example of the irresponsible use of natural resources. About 30 cubic meters of drinking water is spent on processing 1 ton of rock, whereas modern technology makes it possible to use only 4.5 cubic meters of water for 1 ton of rock, or even less. Thus, the Canadian company continues to directly violate 2 laws of Kyrgyzstan, on water and on environmental protection, which oblige water users to responsibly use water bodies and ensure the economical use of water resources and their restoration. However, Centerra Gold continues to not only violate laws, but also carefully filters information, hiding the negative aspects of its activities. The KGC website does not contain information showing that from 1995 to 2013, it worked without permits for waste disposal. Foreign experts note, AMEC, in a 2013 report, stated, all communication on environmental and social issues by Kumtor Operating Company remains at a formal level, without effectively reaching local communities, which are the main target audience. Robert Morin, a cyanide specialist from the US, notes, in a 2011 report, the company controls the collection and flow of virtually all information, environmental, social, investment, etc., related to the project, and made available to the public and Kyrgyz regulatory authorities. The company pays for and manages the collection of distribution of all technical project information. Indeed, independent environmental and social information is not available, so the Kyrgyz media is flooded with mainly pro-Kumtor materials. The violation of the law was acknowledged by the representatives themselves. In particular, the president of Kumtor Operating Company, Michael Fisher, writes in his letter, regarding the permit for waste disposal facilities, we inform you that the sites designated for waste disposal are currently being operated without the registration of the relevant documents.
What you see is not really a mountain, it's a dump formed from waste rocks. Under the dump is a glacier. We were unloading waste rock right onto the glacier, and this caused a landslide. We're now looking for the bodies of 2 workers who were left under the landslide.
December 1st, 2019, on a site in the valley of the Lisi stream, a landslide of waste rock dumps occurred, covering several cars. Mining department foreman Warmabek Ishenbekov and bulldozer driver Joldos Jonushov disappeared. In total, over the entire period of the operation of the mine, from 1996 to 2021, 19 people have died, and 47 people became disabled in Kumtor due to technical errors. 1998 was one of the most tragic years of the operation. One of the Kumtor operating company's trucks had an accident, which caused 1,740 kilograms of cyanide to fall into the Barskon River. A plaintiff in a lawsuit in this matter insists that even after the water was disinfected with chlorine, local residents were poisoned by cyanogen chloride. Allegedly, about 2,000 residents of the Issyk-Kul region were affected, and 2 people died. A total of 17,000 patients received medical care. Litigation continues to this day. It's not just people who suffer. Nature suffers too. The dumped ore destroyed the tongue of the glacier. The volume of water lost as a result of the destruction of the glacier amounted to approximately 77 million cubic meters, which equals 77 billion liters of water. Sources of pure glacial water are rare and have priority over other underground sources. Glacial water is cleaner and more expensive. For example, water sold by the 10,000 BC brand comes from glaciers in Canada, located 200 miles from Vancouver. This water is one of the cleanest bottled waters in the world. It is the most expensive, $46 for a 750 milliliter bottle. Taking into account the current price of drinking water in the world, significant losses result from development in the glacier zone of Kyrgyzstan. These are unacceptable losses that are colossal in comparison to the profits received by Kyrgyzstan as a result of the deposit development by Kumtor. By failing to comply with the national environmental legislation, the Kumtor Gold Company violated one of the fundamental rights of the citizens of Kyrgyzstan, the right to a favorable environment, guaranteed by Article 48 of the Constitution, which is ensured by the obligation of enterprises to comply with the environmental legislation. Glaciers are natural wealth. They give rise to most of the rivers in the region. The lives of millions of the region's inhabitants depend on these rivers, and vast agricultural lands are irrigated with water from them. Any negative impact on the sources of these rivers can lead to catastrophic consequences for a significant part of the population of mainland Asia and irreversible destruction of the continent's ecosystem. The pursuit of gold has at all times been accompanied by violence, corruption, and deceit. The Kyrgyz authorities at one time could not resist temptations, but the gold of Kyrgyzstan may turn out to be too costly for its environment and citizens. Times change. The authorities want to keep the environment clean for posterity. Everything will change over time. Only primordial nature is eternal and unchanging. No gold will ever compare in value to it.